I told my brother's fiancée he had another woman. She got angry and blocked me because she thought I was trying to destroy her marriage. Now my family is cutting me off. Sometimes, since they adore him so much, they are able to turn the discourse towards him even when it isn't possible. I'm not that good in contrast. I have a respectable job in advertising and can afford to live a comfortable life since it pays well. That's certainly not enough to compare, though, when your brother happens to be a neurosurgeon. They like to highlight my brother's accomplishments in order to avoid having to bring up me. They have always been this way. Even if I wish I could argue that this is a recent trend, he has always been the focus, and I have mostly been the supporting cast member since we were young. He was not only a superior student than I was in terms of academic performance, but he was also an excellent athlete and occasionally dabbled in painting. I was quite jealous of him and would always strive to outdo him, but I was never able to. He was just so good at everything. I was therefore miserable for the duration that he was at home. After he departed for medical school, that's when I really started to come into my own. After graduating from high school, I came to the realization that life was more than squandering time attempting to outdo someone else, because I also wanted my parents to have pride in me. It just didn't seem worth it anymore, so I gave myself some grace and made an effort to genuinely enjoy my life rather than attempting to outdo my brother. After that, I was happier, but my parents began to compare me to my brother even more, believing that I was being lazy since I attempted to study and wasn't always holed up in my room trying to get a higher grade than him. However, after that, their plan failed because I realized I could be my own person rather than relying solely on my brother for identification, no matter what that entailed. I had no intention of returning to that existence. It wasn't even that horrible for my academics, so everything was good. I simply gave up attempting to participate in every activity and pushed myself to the limit in an effort to please my parents. They didn't bother to hide their dislike for that either. It was clear to me that they didn't really care about our happiness or our personal development. They would much rather have two competitive, high-achieving children. That's my folks for you. And you folks are incorrect if you were wondering whether my brother did not support the rivalry and toxic sibling rivalry. He was the worst of the worst, and anytime he got the chance, he made me feel even less important. I was always trying to get the better of it since he was always putting me down. I'm fine with it now, but I think all I wanted was something that I was better at than him. I still haven't found it. However, at the time, I was anything but okay with this, and I made a horrible effort to get even with him. He would constantly rub it in my face and keep winning. It was simply so toxic that he would stop at nothing to convince me that our parents would always choose him over me. Growing up in such a terrible place, I detested my brother. I still do. Do not misunderstand me, but for the benefit of the family, I suppose we sort of made up with one another for a little while when we both went our separate ways in life. I kind of stopped caring what my parents thought of me after I left for college and simply wanted to live my life as I saw fit. I continued to communicate with them, but more out of duty than love. After leaving home, my brother and I both had cooled off a lot, so we would always be polite to one another when we saw each other, whether it was over the holidays or at a family get-together. By no means were we buddies, but at least we stopped trying to outdo each other all the time, which was a big change from how we used to behave. My parents had not changed, but the two of us had. Regretfully, they never stopped boasting about my brother and making me seem like a complete loser, which was incredibly bothersome all the time. I would constantly attempt to block them out and act like they had not said what they would have said in order to avoid bothering them, but I couldn't exactly confront them about it without coming across as petty and envious. I never said anything about how my family would act and would set my brother and me against each other because I just wanted to avoid any kind of trouble with them. If I had wanted to, I could have said a lot and kept them silent forever. I didn't intentionally choose to do that, believe me. My brother and my dad were two people I had a lot of dirt on, but I never told them because I thought it would just cause more trouble for the three of us, and I had no desire to interact. I thus kept quiet about everything for several years. It wasn't that I lacked the courage or a backbone to speak up, they were just so obnoxious that I chose not to do any of it. However, the truths I knew about them had the potential to destroy their reputations and ruin their lives. Additionally, I felt that would be a little too severe, so I refrained from doing that. Whatever you want to call myself, I didn't believe that would be just. For example, I was aware that my brother had been involved in a significant scandal during his high school years. After she rejected him, he had been stalking a girl in his grade. This continued for months until the girl broke down and told her father about it. Her father then filed charges against my brother because he had also been persistently harassing the girl online and threatening to ruin her application if she did not accept his advances. Fortunately, my family had some clout, so my parents were able to keep the entire affair quiet. However, everyone in high school knew about it, so it was a big deal. But since there are always other controversies to discuss, it passed swiftly. Additionally, he was recuperating from an ankle fracture and developed a brief addiction to opiates throughout his residency. My parents took great care to hide everything and ensure that no one ever learned about it. Judging by the fact that no one even recalls any of it but me, they did a very good job. It was simply assumed that I would never raise a concern about any of this. In addition, I was aware of several details about my parents that I'm sure they would prefer no one else to know. I was aware that my dad, who was nearly in his late 40s at the time, had an affair with his secretary, who was only 22. He had to comply with my mother's request because he didn't want a divorce and had to let her go once she learned about it and threatened to leave him if he didn't locate the secretary. However, in order to protect the company from lawsuits, he also had to give her a sizable sum of hush money and have her sign an NDA promising not to discuss it. I knew they all had skeletons in their closets, but I kept it to myself because I didn't want to ruin them or feel that talking about it was necessary. My parents treated me poorly, knowing full well that I was aware of the secrets they had been keeping from everyone for a very long time. However, because my brother is a repulsive person, it did ultimately surface. Recently, he began dating a friend of mine. A few years ago, I had just posted a housewarming celebration for everyone after moving into a larger new apartment. At my previous job, I had worked with my friend, and we had become rather close. I was a little dubious when I learned that my brother had proposed to her at my party because I did not want her to suffer harm. I even questioned my brother's character. She seemed to genuinely enjoy my brother, even though I knew he was a bit of a jerk when it came to women, so nothing I said would seem to connect with her. They had been dating for over 4 years when they got engaged at the start of this year, so things were going well for a while. Even though my brother and I did not get along, we remained friends. She seemed content with him, and I honestly believed that he had changed for her benefit because she never said anything bad about him and always made him seem like the ideal guy. I was glad for her because I reasoned that perhaps my personal problems with him had no bearing on his capacity to be a decent partner to the person he loved. However, I learned that he had been unfaithful to her for a few days, roughly a month and a half, with his collaborator. This was no passing phase. His relationship had escalated to a full-fledged affair during the previous 2 years. His coworker understood that he wasn't serious and that it was all just a joke to him when he got engaged. Despite the fact that they had been meeting in private and he had promised her that he would break things off with my friend and get with her, she had split up with him a few days after he became engaged. But he continued to pursue her and ask her to places so they could hook up. She was so repulsed by this that she made the decision to get even with him before quitting her job, as she was leaving in a few days for a better opportunity. She was immediately aware that speaking with his parents would not be beneficial because they held a great deal of reverence for him. She also couldn't bring herself to talk to my friend directly, so she didn't want to. She knew I didn't get along with my brother, so she reached out to me even though she was so embarrassed. She sent me all the evidence I needed to ensure my friend understood the truth, and she also assured me that I could now do anything I wanted. She would be okay with it even if I said nothing. At least she would have gotten it off her chest. She then banned me from using the account she had used to contact me, as well as from any other accounts, making it impossible for me to even get in touch with her. However, I already had all I required. All I had to do was consider whether or not I wanted to be honest with my friend. In reality, it wasn't a difficult decision. Being a truly sweet girl, I realized I had to tell her about the affair because she deserved better. Additionally, I was aware that everything my friend thought about my brother was too good to be true. Not only was I not going to be my brother's affair partner, but he himself would never tell her the truth, so it was not like I was going to enjoy the experience of having to be the one to break the bad news to her. I made the decision that I would have to fulfill her request. It was a big deal because I was risking our friendship, and I wasn't sure if she would want to stay in touch with me after she discovered my brother was having an extramarital affair. However, I reasoned that it was the right thing to do and that I could not let her suffer in that way because my brother had already cheated on her, and I knew there was nothing that could prevent him from doing so in the future. Hence, he would simply find someone else to sleep with behind my friend's back if it weren't his coworker. Additionally, he would never abandon her since he has a flaw similar to all other cheaters. I decided to invite her over for lunch and then break the news to her. After giving it some thought, even though I tried my best to be polite, the news I was giving her was still heartbreaking. You could try to sugarcoat that, but it would never change. She appeared to be in shock for a while after I showed her all the screenshots and told her everything my brother's coworker had told me. She was in denial and insisted that there had to be some mistake because she knew my brother loved her and he would never have treated her in this way. However, I had to inform her that it was accurate. Subsequently, her tears began, and I don't think I've ever witnessed someone sobbing like that. She was a really close friend of mine, so it was very painful and difficult for me to watch. However, my brother had severely damaged her, and I detested him for it. I did my best to support her and assured her that I would always be available if she needed someone to talk to, only a phone call away. She then left for home to speak with my brother about this when he came back home from work. This was just 1 week ago, and the wedding is supposed to happen in less than a month, so there's a sense of urgency in the situation right now. I expected her to call me back and tell me everything that was going on after she went back home, but that phone call never came. All of a sudden, I realized that she had blocked me on social media, and I had no way to get through to her. That was really shocking because I thought I was doing her a favor by telling her the truth about my brother, and here she was blocking me out. I tried to contact her from different accounts for a couple of days, but it did not work. She just blocked whatever new account I would create and was refusing to pick up my calls. It wasn't even just her. I had been blocked by a couple of other relatives as well, and some people had even started to reach out to me and tell me that I was really wrong for trying to ruin their relationship just a few weeks before their wedding. I had absolutely no idea what was going on and what they had been telling people about me, and neither did I have any other way to contact her or my brother or even my parents because they had all blocked me. So I did the only thing that occurred to me and decided to go to her workplace and wait for her to come out so we could talk. For days ago, during my own lunchtime, I went to my previous office and waited for her to come out because I knew that she usually gets lunch from a nearby restaurant. As soon as she came out, I decided to confront her because I needed to know what was going on. She was astonished to see me, but when she recovered, she put on this incredibly icy look and told me to leave since she did not want anything to do with me anymore. I was quite bewildered by this conduct because I had imagined that I had done something nice for her and I was not going to go without an answer. So I informed her that I was not going anywhere and she definitely had to tell me what was going on because what she was doing was utterly wrong. Then she finally turned around and informed me that the reason she did not want to speak to me anymore was that she knew I was attempting to ruin her relationship with my brother on purpose because I was envious of him. Now that she knew the truth, she was not going to let me come in between them and damage their relationship. She told me that she did not trust me one bit after she had come to know the things that I had done in the past, referring to things that I didn't even do, and I'm convinced that my brother had spoken those things to her to manipulate her against me. So she did not believe whatever I had told her about his affair and whatnot, and she was even naive enough to fall for all of it and believe what he was saying instead of what I was telling her. Even though I have hard proof, I was extremely put off by the way that she was treating me like I was some idiot and I could never reach the level of my brother. So I was attempting to drag him down by breaking his relationship just a couple of weeks before his nuptials. I knew that my brother had turned her against me and she was not going to trust anything I was going to tell her because she had made up her mind about who she was going to believe, and it was not me. So I did not waste any more of my time attempting to communicate with her because it was her life and she could destroy it however she decided to. I was incredibly unhappy and almost on the verge of tears since I had honestly thought that I was doing a good thing, but it had backfired, and now I had lost a friend solely because of my brother. I was equally furious with him because he had given her a lot of false information about me, leading her to believe that the man she was getting married to was a good man. He had basically told her that I had taken and edited all those screenshots myself out of a desire to harm him. It turns out that this was not even my first attempt at sabotage, as I had done similar things with his ex-girlfriend and told them all so many lies about him that they had to leave. My buddy had made the decision to be with him because of what he had told her. Okay, then she may be in his company, but because he wanted to hide his personal affair, he had destroyed my bond with someone I thought was close, and I was not going to put up with it. I then took revenge on him, which has angered everyone because they believe I ought to have just let it go. Thus, my actions were not considerate, since I was tired of handling everything in silence and comforting myself by telling myself that I was being the bigger person and letting them live in peace. I'll admit that I did it out of rage and a desire for vengeance for everything my brother had put me through over the years. After all, they were my family, and I didn't want to do anything that I would later regret. Therefore, that was not going to happen anymore. I was going to finally tell everyone about all the secrets I had been keeping to myself. But I stopped caring at this point. I was furious and created a post on the evening of the day I made the decision to question my buddy about why she was ignoring me. After reprimanding me, all of the secrets I had kept to myself for all these years, all of which I have already mentioned, were included in that post, and I made sure to go into great detail about each one. I even made my account public specifically for this reason, so it was well considered, and I most definitely did not act in a hurry. I told her about my brother's history of opioid addiction and how, after she turned down his advances for months, he had stalked her. I also discussed my father's affairs with his secretary and how, despite my mother's disapproval, they had to fire her. Despite this, she stayed with him and pretended that nothing had happened because she had nowhere else to go. Of course, living with an unfaithful husband and being wealthy was preferable to being impoverished and living alone. Everyone in the family was treating me like a pariah, blaming me and not wanting to speak to me. I knew that this was all his fault, and I was furious that he believed he could harm me in this way and get away with it. I then typed up the post and published it online for everyone to see. Although I don't regret it, personally, many have approached me afterward and said that I went too far because it might destroy my brother's life and profession, in addition to his marriage. I failed to see how that is relevant to me, as all I did was reveal the facts to help people realize the true nature of my brother and my parents. I honestly don't think I did anything wrong. Instead of the happy picture they present to the public, I had been keeping this to myself for nearly my whole life before, but they just kept pressuring me. I had no choice but to reveal their true nature to the public at this point. I don't regret it either. However, a few of my more understanding friends and family members who didn't block me or turn against me now believe that I ought to remove the post because of how serious this is. Since they were the only ones that supported me prior to this, I don't think I need to remove the post, but I also don't want to completely ignore what they have to say. I apologize for posting anything that might destroy my family's lives after they tricked everyone into turning against me first. Update: I've made a decision, and regrettably, it won't benefit my family. I've decided that under no circumstances would I remove the post. They shouldn't have interfered with me if they didn't want that information to be revealed in such a negative manner. They took advantage of me and mistreated me for years, even after they knew I was aware of these facts. How could they have possibly known? Did they honestly believe I would just live with it and let them do as they pleased for the rest of my life? Yes, it is not happening. The only reason I even thought about removing that post was that I felt like I was being extremely harsh. However, after reading the comments, I realized that I probably wasn't being harsh enough on them, and that anyone else in my situation would have revealed the secrets long ago because no one would tolerate this kind of disrespectful behavior without cause. But because I didn't want to ruin their lives, I did put up with it for a very long time, but that's a different story now. I don't give a damn about what becomes of them or how this turns out. I've had enough of being the nice girl and considering my family and their circumstances. They never gave my mental health or my reaction to their words and actions any thought, so why should I? All of us are still in agreement. They have not deserted me as I had assumed. They seem to grasp my point of view when I explain my sentiments and say that I won't be removing the post. That is now resolved, so I don't need to worry about it. My family hasn't gotten in touch with me yet, so I assume they're too busy trying to keep their heads above water in light of the kind of revelations that have come to light about them. All right, they will be occupied with this for some time. Update 2. A few folks have now informed me that the wedding has been canceled. Really, I couldn't be more content. Although my friend hasn't been in touch with me, at least she's broken up with that guy. Now, I believe what I did was appropriate. I don't regret anything. Nearly a week and a half has passed since I published that post, and my relatives have been attempting to communicate with me and unblocking me left and right. I've blocked them now, probably to avoid having to deal with any more rumors. That post was only an attempt to let my family know how big of a favor I was doing for them. I had no intention of playing the song because it was so unpleasant and meaningless. It's time to move on since I've completed what I set out to do. Update 3. My parents then threatened to cut me off forever in an email that they sent to me since I had let them down once and for all. They were also revising their will and making sure that I was not included in it. They also informed me that my brother's career was now not looking well and that he had been placed on paid administrative leave due to the wild allegations circulating around him. What that has to do with me, I'm not sure. I just spoke what I had to say. He probably needed to have responded more directly and openly if he didn't want to get into problems, but I suppose that's simply the way things operate there. They are completely attracted to falsehoods and secrets. Simply put, I'm relieved that I'm no longer formally a member of the family. In any case, I would detest being a member of that kind of family. They informed me that I would find out if I had been removed from their will by getting a call from their attorney in a few days. As if it were any consequence to me. Anywhere they want to, they can cut me out. It hardly matters to me. Update 4. Hello, everyone. So, a few weeks have passed since the wedding was canceled. My parents have also formally disinherited me. A few days ago, I got a call from their attorney, but it's not relevant. It's okay with me. My life is going well, and I have supportive and caring friends, all I could ask for. Speaking of pals, here's my old friend and my brother's former fiancée. She contacted me yesterday to express her sincere apologies for not having faith in me and to thank me for everything that I had done for her. She informed me that she was leaving because she could no longer live here and was over with everything. She asked to see me one last time before she went, and I believe I will. She's not a nasty person. It's not her fault that she simply fell in love with someone. All I can hope is that she eventually finds contentment. She is a deserving woman and should be delighted.